doesn't matter what kind of obstacles you have to overcome. It doesn't matter what kind of limitations you think you have. But imagine yourself like a lion. A lion does lion things, whether it knows it's a lion or not. You are a lion. Be the lion. Becoming a real estate agent, even though I'm deaf, overcoming all the adversity and things like that. Henry Mims here, the deaf agent out of the beautiful Space Coast in sunny Florida. It's been a long road to where I was to where I am now. And as you guys know by now, watching the channel and stuff, I am 95% deaf. So legally, I am deaf. I'll explain more on that later. But I didn't become deaf because I stuck sticks in my ears or because my parents are deaf. It's not hereditary in my case. When I was about 8 months old, I had meningitis. And then from there, they didn't even know I was deaf. I had meningitis. I got put under a coma for maybe about a month or so. And then the heat and the inflammation is what kind of caused everything. Mine is not an eardrum. My eardrums are perfectly normal. But the nerve that transmits sound, or frequencies or vibrations or whatever you want to call it, from the eardrums to the brains and in between there, that's what's kind of gone wonky on for me. But they didn't know I was deaf until I was a little bit older, which kind of leads into, I didn't know sign language at a young age, like most kids who are deaf, especially nowadays, because there's a lot of testing and stuff that can be done. But at that age, nobody bothered testing me because my dad had a deep voice and I kind of got along getting on. It's just what you, kind of like you move along with what you know. Everything seems normal to you. You don't know that nobody else is deaf. You don't even know you are deaf. So when that happened, then they started kind of figuring out that something was a little different with me. And at this point, again, no sign language, no speaking, no any of that, because I didn't know how to mimic or anything because I couldn't hear. When they did find out I was deaf, they put me into speech therapy and things like that. I got into classes, keep in mind this is the late 70s, early 80s, right? So I did get put into a school and speech therapy and things like that to try and help me come along. I was part of the Fiddlers program, FDLRS. Thing that kind of started to separate was, and everybody's got their own ways to go about things, okay? So I'm not saying anything was right or wrong, but when I was younger, there was much more of an emphasis put on me learning how to sign to be able to communicate to somebody, right? Because here I am, there's a world out there that I don't know how to talk to, they don't know how to talk to me. But in signing, I could belong to something as a stepping stone to speaking, right? So when I was a lot younger, I signed a lot, but the focus was on trying to get me to speak. Not because they thought there was anything wrong with me not speaking, but because they wanted me to have every chance that I could, and they believed that they believed in me, and they put me through. It was a heavy regimen. Don't get me wrong, it was tough. It was not easy. There were a lot of, I can remember little bits and pieces when I was younger, and my childhood was pretty good, but there were some rough moments because you sound weird, which you do. I mean, there's no way of getting around it. I know people want to be polite about it, but you do. You sound very weird compared to the norm. And then you also have to factor in that you don't say the words right because, again, you're having to learn how to speak by reading lips, so hands on the throat, pressure, like if you do this, and you say, hello, my name is Peter, but you have a hand on here and a hand on here on somebody else, right? So I'm just going to pretend I have my hand, this is near. Okay, I have my hand here, and then I put my hand up where your mouth would be, and then you speak. So you say, hello, my name is Henry. And I would learn how to pronounce the words because of the way the breath happens, the way the words happen, the way the lips happen, the way the voice tracks. Which is why a lot of deaf people, when they're in speech therapy, they don't really have a lot of highs and lows because feeling this is a lot different when you can't hear this. So this is emphasis and things like that, but you don't really have anything to mimic, as a thing to copy, you know? And the other thing is a lot of people try to figure out where I'm from. All my speech therapists were from all over the world. Spain, England, India, South America, the United States and stuff. And the way it was set up was all these people trying to come to the United States to get work. Well, here you come and do this for these, speech therapists, for example, in my case. So I would learn how to say different words and different things from people that spoke different languages. So the dialect and the what are they called? Not the dialect, accent. I knew I would get it. But the accents, the dialects, all those things kind of played into my speech pattern. Getting older, I got taken out of special ed and put into mainstream. This created a problem though, because I didn't have anybody to sign to anymore. Well, what happens when you don't use a language for a long enough time, especially going on 5, 10, 15, 20 years? What do? You start to lose a lot of it. And this kind of got me a lot of backlash from the deaf community, because then they thought that I thought I was too good to sign. And it wasn't that. I still do know some. It wasn't that. I just didn't have anybody to talk to. When I got taken out and put into the mainstream program, and then I got out of the mainstream program and just went full-fledged public school, there was nobody. And as I got older, people who were deaf became less and less common, just because of the schools I went to, and there wasn't a lot of interaction. I did know some deaf people, and the deaf people that I've met, for the most part, have been really cool. Some of them not at all. They think that I'm trying to violate a culture that they have created, and it's not theirs to create, and I say that outright. It's a part of something that we all can just get along with, but if you don't want to, that's not my problem, that's yours. But yeah, so going into that, there was a lot left to be desired when, moving on into high school and stuff like that. Which I had lots of ups and downs as well, because, for example, I can go to parties and stuff and I can read lips. I can talk without my hearing aid on. And a lot of times, I don't even want to wear my hearing aid. I wear my hearing aid to get on through life, but when I'm at home, most of the time, I don't even wear it. When I'm at a concert, I don't wear it. I don't want to. There's a lot more to life than just putting this thing in the ear and just calling it a debt. Which is part of the reason why when people tell me that they're sorry to hear that I'm deaf, I'm not. Don't apologize. I'm okay with it, And I would actually prefer it. If I had a surgery that could give me back all my hearing, I would not take it. Absolutely not. There's a movie that Val Kilmer is in which he is blind, and then he gets a surgery to correct his vision, and his world becomes a nightmare. I couldn't even imagine what that would be with hearing, because you can't stop it. From there, kind of moved on to after high school. I actually started working in restaurants, believe it or not. Like you have to rely on all this talking and stuff. But I had become so used to having to communicate and stuff without my hearing aid that it didn't matter how loud things were, I could still talk to people, I could still do things. And I started off as a busser because nobody wanted to hire me as a waiter, which I really wanted to do, but at that time. And nobody would hire me because, again, a deaf waiter, yeah, whatever. So I did that for a little bit. I learned how to get on to work around in the business world, not business world, but in the real world, getting a job and stuff like that. We all need one to pay bills, right? But so I did that for a little while. I went to school for culinary and kind of worked out as far as being in the kitchen and stuff. So, interesting thing is in the kitchen, there's so much going on and so much clanging and so much from a distance that you have to hear, that we would do signs that were only in the kitchen, so that way when somebody needed somebody on Expo or whatever, a fry, grill, whatever, that they would do little signs of what they needed from me if I was doing prep, or on the grill, I needed, whatever, we would come up with different signs. And then moving on, I moved down to Orlando to be in culinary. That didn't work out, so I stuck as a waiter just because it paid more and I had more time to do. I could make a good amount of money, especially when I drive. A good amount of money just working 20, 30 hours a week. And then I had some health complications in between then. But no matter what, everything that I did revolved around making me a better communicator. And the funny thing is I didn't even realize it. I really didn't. I didn't think of it because I was just doing. I was just doing what I needed to do to provide for my family. But I didn't realize that all the communication and knowing how to do things that was coming along with it, not just in verbal, as in, hi, how are you, but as in body language, like all these things just started just kind of really forming me to understand a lot more than just the voice, than just the posturing, the lips, the squinting, the the way the person moved. I mean, just all these types of things, right? And then I went into fine dining. And from fine dining was a whole different beast altogether. And I worked my way up. I became front of house manager or service manager for the waiters and waitresses, not so much the bartenders and storage and things like that. But and then moved on into fine dining as well. And I loved it. I really did. And the only reason why I stopped was because my hearing was declining. So when the hearing's declining, what do? You got to find something else to do. I went into sales. I did well with that. COVID hit. But then everybody was wearing masks. So that was a nightmare. Everybody's wearing masks and I can't understand anything anybody's saying. So I just got that. That was probably one of the worst years, a year and a half of my life. I mean, besides my dad dying, that was a kind of tough one, but it was just, I just could not understand anybody. Everybody was trapped in, the mask everybody was wearing. I'm trying to talk to people, hey, how you doing? My wife got a mask that was clear, which helped out a lot, except for when she would breathe, because she breathed and it fogged up the mask. So I'm having to read her lips and, let me see her lips. And she was amazing in that, you know. I mean, she just is amazing. If you ever meet her, she's just absolutely amazing. But so what ended up happening was I had a friend of the family's that said that, you know, a lot of people try to recruit me to be a real estate agent for a long, long time. And I never wanted to because, you know, I'm working in fine dining and I'm making this money and I'm making more than the average agent makes. And I'm only working 20, 30 hours a week and you're coming in here looking like, oh my God, you know, just stressed out. I don't want that. So I kind of said, no. A lot of all the heavy hitters around here, they come to eat at these restaurants. And I said, no. Well, a family friend said, hey, do you want to do this? I said, no, I don't. She asked me for about a year, maybe 2 years, maybe a year. Yeah, about a year or two. I kept saying, no. Well, so COVID hits, everybody's wearing masks. Now I'm getting further and further away from the work field. And I need to do something, because I got to pay bills. And I had a little bit of money to help me out, but I need to pay bills because you don't want to just have nothing. So she reached out to me again and I said, look, the only way I'll do it is if you become my mentor. If you're not going to commit to that, I'm not going to commit to that. And she said, okay, I'll do it. So I said, okay, I got nothing to lose. So I went and got my real estate exam done, and then I went I went under her mentorship for the brokerage. And wow, it was a huge difference. And one of the things that I had to learn to overcome was everybody loves to talk on the phones. I know we're in a texting world, and that kind of saved me a bunch of times, and I'll explain how in just a minute, but it's just a different world. It just really is. And I had to try and learn how to talk differently, because when you're talking person to person, you can see the eyes, you can see the lips, you can see all that stuff. When you're texting, it's just to give information. I mean, you can add things like WTF or LOL or your emojis and stuff, but the true interaction happens with everything you don't hear, it's everything you see, right? And if you don't believe me, just go and talk to people. Don't talk to people, but go like your best friend, your BFF, if you're feeling silly one night or whatever, try this. So if you're ever having just a night with your girlfriend or with your guy friends, just try communicating without words. And watch how important the facial expressions are. I mean, you can use your hands and stuff, but the facial expressions, huge. So I know people might disagree with me on that, but I think that the facial expressions and the hands and the mannerisms and the body language and all that, probably at least 75% of communication is that. Then another 10 to 15% is words and how you enunciate them, and then the rest of it is the actual words you use. Don't quote me, I'm not a psychologist or anything, but I would be willing to bet it would be at least over 75%. It has to be. Well, at least in my world it is. It might not be in your world, but in my world it is. So I did that, and the thing that I learned from it more than anything else was, number one, how much people would try to take advantage of you because you're deaf. See, in the world that I was in before, you know, you have people who say, oh, the order was wrong, but I repeated it back. Is it really? But is the phone calls, which is why I rarely ever do phone calls. So if you're an agent that's ever dealt with me and you wonder why I won't pick up the phone, I'm about to tell you. There are so many agents that I would repeat back exactly what they said, and they would agree that that is what they said. And then later on, they play dumb to that's never what they said. So then my mentor said, you gotta be careful with that, Papi, because, if you do this and that, she's a Colombian woman, amazing woman. One day you're gonna see her right next to me somewhere over here. I don't know. But, and so I would reiterate in text and email back what the conversation was about, a general consensus. This is how we're moving forward. This often now becomes a contract. Is the roof going to be done? What is this? What is that? What's the date on this? Is the earnest money deposited? Like all these things. And then you'd be surprised how quickly you get the crickets. That's like, all right, from now on, it's going to be all in writing. That's it. Because then you have something to say, no, this person said this. And then it's not a matter of, no, what I meant was, no, you said this. Because that's what I ran into a lot with, because once people started figuring out that I couldn't really pick up, like sarcasm is hard for me to pick up unless I'm reading the body language and I know the person. But other than that, it can be a little tricky. So, oh no, what I meant was this, or generalizations, or assumptions, or, nah, it either is or it isn't, in my book. But not all is bad though, because there's also a lot of cool things that come with it. For example, I got a client that ended up becoming a good friend of mine because they're deaf. And the daughter was looking for a house for them. They were selling their house up in South Carolina, and they were moving down here. And it just makes me, for lack of a better understanding, it causes me to have to hone in and really pay attention to what you're saying. And I have to really follow you. And it's not one of those, How many times have we been in that conversation where we don't know if the person's listening or not? I have to listen. And I really want to know what comes next. I'm invested. I need to know how the story ends, So, and that's why so because of my necessity to pay attention, rather than just assume or just kind of pick up little things, no, I have to pay attention. So because of that, people in turn feel like they're being heard, and they are. Hey, we got mail today.
All right.
Hey.
Have a good one.
We got mail. You have a good day, brother.
Thanks, you too.
You too. So that's one of the ways that it really helps me out to be the best realtor I possibly can, because you're gonna have all these people that are gonna, in the real estate world, as unfortunate as it may be, okay? You're gonna have a lot of people that are just listening to you until that paycheck comes, and then they just wanna move on. They don't remember who you are. They might not even notice you in the store anymore. But I am so glued, and there are so many conversations that happen in person. I buy people coffee, we go out to breakfast, I go visit, I do all those types of things, And it really, really, really helps out as far as the relationship building. Because lucky for me, I've had a lot of clients that I like, So it's not like I get to meet their families, I get to hear the stories, they're overcoming. I see the kids, I've been to their games, like all these things, and it just becomes a part of life, Now, I do understand that a lot of people are really, 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 really busy. So then it just kind of becomes one of those things where you try to make time wherever you can. And unfortunately, I don't get to see them nearly as much as I would like. But it is what it is. But that's one of the things that I think makes me such a great realtor. Not that I'm the greatest or anything like that, but as far as empathy and as far as understanding and as far as relating, and that standpoint, I'm sure there's a lot that I still have to learn. There is. So, but that's one of the things that I am definitely try to key in on, right? Just focus on the 2 or 3 things you're good at and delegate the rest. Which is one of the ways that I have been able to overcome a lot of this is, I have a transaction coordinator who is amazing. And I had a transaction coordinator before her who was amazing. But there's a lot of things that require phone calls and things like that, and I try to delegate it to other people. My transaction coordinator is the one that makes the phone calls to other agents, the commission, whoever, whatever it is. If the phone call needs to be made, she's the one that does it. As far as phone calls for trying to find out if people are still interested in buying or selling, I have my assistant, who's my son right now, who's getting a real estate license soon, and he's going to be doing this with me. But right now, he's the one that does the phone calls for me, and what he does is, and I'll give you an example. Here's a phone, right? So you call me on my phone, and I put it on speakerphone. And so I will give it to him. So like right now, here you are, okay? So here you are. So they're talking, and he is lip syncing. So we're gonna pretend like it's me, okay? So you have my phone, you're deaf, right? And I'm sitting here and I'm doing the interpreting for you, right? So this is what we do. So we're gonna pretend we're my son for right now, okay, Goose, which you might see on video one day. But, so Goose is holding this and I'm looking at him. So just like you're looking at me. And somebody will say, is there any way we can push the closing from the 1st until the 28th, and instead of 10 a.m. we do 3 p.m. Okay? So what he will do is, so I'm reading his lips. While I'm reading his lips, he's doing it right as soon as they're saying it. So then I'm answering them based on what he's telling me with his lip syncing. So a lot of times they don't even know that I have somebody listening to the conversation, except for the fact that I tell them that somebody's listening to the conversation. And so they wouldn't know. If I didn't tell them, they wouldn't know, because I'm reading his lips while he's interpreting what they're saying, and I'm responding to what he's saying with his lips, if that makes any kind of sense. But that's one of the ways that I've overcome it. The other way I've overcome it is texting, emails, whatever. I do a lot of video chatting. And that's probably the biggest way to overcome. But in all honesty, that's the best way to do anything, in my opinion, because just pick 2 or 3 things that you're exceptional at and delegate the rest. Because if you don't, you're gonna find yourself wasting way too much time trying to do things, because it's just gonna be, and it's gonna burn you out. So just don't do it. More than anything, I just want you to know, and that's the whole reason behind this channel more than anything else, is that I want you to know that it doesn't matter what kind of obstacles you have to overcome. It doesn't matter what kind of limitations you think you have. Just do it. Let's go. We got this. Look, cause I want to explain something real quick, and take it for however you want, okay? If a 95% deaf, 2 open heart surgery, man can become a fine dining waiter, it took time. Top salesman in 3 or 4 different categories, it took time. Working in a kitchen, it took time. Becoming a real estate agent, which also took time. And I can do this? What are you waiting on? Like, you're gonna hear me say it a lot, guys. Don't live your life based on what somebody else thinks they can do. Just because they can't do it, or because they think they can't do it, doesn't mean that you're limited to their beliefs. Don't be limited to their beliefs. Believe in you. I believe in you. I don't even know you, and I believe you can do it. Why? Because I had to have somebody that believed in me before I even knew I could do it. They knew what I could do. I didn't know it. But little by little, and wow, and the amazing, and it's like I try to tell everybody all the time, you gotta imagine yourself like a lion, right? And or an eagle, or whatever it is you want to like. But imagine yourself like a lion. The lion does lion things, whether it knows it's a lion or not. You leave a lion out in the wild, it's still gonna hunt. You are a lion. Be the lion. Don't wait for somebody else to tell you you're a lion. You are a lion. Go out there, get it. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope, if you have any questions or anything, please let me know. And I guess until next time, Henry Mims, the deaf agent, go out there and kill it, all right? Let's go.